to empire. I mean, I think in the UK, in terms of how we pivot increasingly towards much better relations, with China. One of the big breaks on that is the massive Sinophobia, in the United Kingdom. I mean, there's been a significant, small but significant Chinese expat community in the UK for decades, quite frankly, but the almost neo-colonial Sinophobia still exists. And a good example of that is the painful resistance to letting the Chinese government build and invest millions and millions in this swanky new embassy site near the city of London. I mean, the mainstream media, politicians saying, "Well, this is going to be a site spying." By the way, every single embassy in the world of every country spies. I mean, that's what they do, amongst other things. Has been ridiculous. And Keir Starmer is going to Beijing, I think, next month. I genuinely think that he, even though he doesn't want to admit it publicly, recognizes that we need to develop a closer bond, with China. But he's operating within a British blob and trying to navigate that. I mean, this must be quite perplexing for people in Beijing getting mixed signals out of London. How do you see it?
Look, look. Ian, you're a diplomat, so you know this very well, okay? So there are exactly two nations in the world that have been aggressively spying on the Europeans. They are first and foremost America. Americans love to bug Angela Merkel's phone. Edwin Snowden leaks revealed that the NSA was spying on Angela Merkel, and you can imagine every other European leader. Okay, and the other power, of course, is the are the Israelis, the Mossad. Okay, so these are the two nations that have the best record of spying on the Europeans. Okay, and it's really well documented. And you have very little evidence of Chinese. So as you say, it's really perplexing for the Chinese how, okay, we have all these reports and documents that the Israelis, Netanyahu, is tried to bug Boris Johnson. He went into the restroom and he tried to install bugs in the restroom. And what was he reprimanded? Was there a public spat? Did this cause a diplomatic uproar? No, nothing. I mean, no one mentioned it. Okay, so it's really perplexing why this happens. Why? Okay, there's so much evidence that the Israelis, the Americans are compromising the national interests of the British and the Europeans. There's very little evidence the Chinese are doing so. The Chinese are always in the spotlight. The Chinese are the greatest threat, even though there's really no proven evidence that the Chinese are actually threatening the British political system in any way.
Yeah. Like I say, I mean, having worked in the UK system, I know how much we spy, and I think to a greater or less extent, I think everybody does it. But you're right. I mean, people pick out China, but also, of course, Russia. Whenever they throw these without looking in the mirror, about what we do. And I think about the very famous defection, Soviet Union defection of Oleg Gordievsky in 1985, and he was actually discovered by the Soviets as being about to defect, basically because a Soviet agent in the CIA, snitched on him because the Americans were so jealous that the UK was getting really good Soviet intelligence that they started spying on us to find out who it was. And when they found out who it was, as a KGB agent inside of the CIA, then told the Soviet Union, and this guy had to flee for his life. Anyway, that's a slight aside, but I mean, it makes absolute sense, for the UK to kind of move more closely to China. I generally think he's a pretty poor prime minister, but I think in this respect, Keir Starmer is trying to do the right thing. Whether he succeeds is another matter. The UK has a big trade debt. We import a lot of stuff, from China, but we hardly get any investment, basically because we block it all the time. If it's a nuclear power plant, if it's telephone networks, if it's anything like this, there'll be someone who says, "Well, we can't do that because the Chinese will be spying on us." It's quite bizarre. So I actually sort of welcome what he's trying to do there. But let's see if he bears fruit when he's in when he's in Beijing. I mean, the other empire is the EU itself, and if that can continue, I mean, I think it's headed for a catastrophe. Quite frankly, because it's become so centralized, and it's taking power away from individual kind of nation states, that they're starting to rebel. And that direction of travel at the moment only seems to be going one way, and that's towards the exit door. I mean, what's your kind of sense?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. So I'll make a point that in Donald Trump's national security strategy, okay, he argues that multilateralism is dead. It's a lie, and multilateralism is just a pretext for the Europeans, the British, to free ride on American military power, on on American generosity, basically. So he says in the future, America is going to put self-interest first, like above everything else. Okay. So America says this, and I think everyone should be doing this, right? China should be doing this. The UK should be doing this. Europe should be doing this. Okay. You should put national self-interest above everything else because that's the world we live in. Okay. The American empire, it's dying. America is trying to cling on to this empire, and now it's just devolved in this mafia empire where might makes right. And so every nation needs to act in its own best interest. And right now, as you say, the EU, it's a huge bureaucracy that's not capable of being innovative, that is not capable of being strategic. So it just continues to be what it is, and it's leading to disaster. Right now, what the EU should be doing is trying to negotiate as quickly as possible an end to this war in Ukraine, because it is not helping anyone that this war continues. And the longer that this war continues, the more people will suffer. But instead, the EU is continuing this war in Ukraine because honestly, these are bureaucrats and they do not know what else to do. They don't want to lose face, they don't want to admit they're wrong, and they don't want to suffer the consequences for their mistakes. And so the EU right now has become its worst enemy. This bureaucracy is blinding these nations from making strategic long-term interests.
Yeah, I agree, and I mean, I've said it also that it's that fear of losing face, um, that is holding Europe back, because it certainly isn't the money, because we're the economies of Europe going into decline, deindustrialization is happening, debt levels are growing, taxes are rising, and all and all those things. So unlike the US, we're not profiting. I mean, some companies are obviously profiting from the war in Ukraine, but Europe itself, ordinary working citizens of Europe, are not profiting from the war in Ukraine. So I think it's that kind of personal self-interest, and ambition of politicians who don't want to step up and tell the voters that actually, sorry, we lied to you. We said that we could beat Russia, but actually we couldn't beat Russia, and we've got to stop. And it's that losing face. Is for me one of the biggest things